For the frozen positions?
For the
The frozen positions?
general fund request, position request, and vacancy frozen position, there are three.
Yes, they have all three of those.
Okay, so what I would like to direct their attention to is that, let's look at the general fund request, and that's that 1 million, the total request with the part would be 2,466,968. However, because that was the last minute information that Marcel got, we only put in for this booklet 1,916,968. So we haven't put that 550 in there. But all of those are showing what the requests are. They're in the back of each department, and they'll be discussing them today as we go through. So you'll have this in front of you. You'll be able to see it behind each department, and department heads can explain what it is and why they need it. If you go to the sheet that says position request, the total requested positions is, and I put on the paper, included in fiscal year 22 budget is frozen. These are included, but this is what the departments are asking to be unfrozen. So in total, with new positions and unfreezing positions, is about 669,019. If you want to just look at new positions, they're asking for 238,459 in new positions. And again, we put this on the list, and the departments will be briefing this as they go through their budget. The next paper that we gave you was the vacancies of the frozen positions. This is the 1,048,000 I was referencing that you have in frozen positions that are in the budget. So before I move on, is there any questions about that? Okay. So, I'm just presenting an overview, but this will all be gone over, and please, any questions or anything, I won't be staying for all the departmental presentations, but at some point, John, if there's questions, text me and I'll pop back in, because I'm working with staff to finish the rest of the budget that you need to get tomorrow or tonight. As far as other things I'd like council to think about as you go through the budget, and I didn't have the time to put it on the slide here, so this one I'll put on the slide and resend John so that they have it in writing, okay?
Okay.
Because there are other alternatives you can think about. There's something, and it can be small. When we were looking for the compensation study, we said, okay, we need ongoing revenues, and where can we come up with the money? Well, you've got a very, very healthy fund balance. You're also, you've got ongoing, because when your actual revenues are more than your actual expenditures, you do have room there for ongoing and to fund the compensation study. But if council doesn't want to tie all that up, there is something that we do, just brainstorming things. There's $114,000 a year that you don't pass on for people using credit cards. And I'd say the majority of cities and towns do pass that on. If you go online and try to pay anything, in a lot of things, like if you pay your electric bill online, they pass on a fee for that. Well, the city of Nogales doesn't. So that's just something to think about that could be looked at and free up $114,000. Those are the kind of things we went through and we thought about and tried to figure out ways to fund this compensation study. So I will put that on the slide. I will put a few more things on there about potential ways to do it. But as you can see, we've got some healthy one-time reserves, but it's still a decision to council. And the main thing is whether or not you want to fund the compensation study, which is included in the budget under the reserve, the Chase Bank, which is under there, and then the capital requests are in there, so you need to tell us if you want them taken out as we go through the budget, because we have included them in the budget with the exception of parks. So, and then there were two more that wasn't included, and that was for library and for the cemetery. And they'll be briefing on those amounts that would also have to come off the top. And I'll put that on the slide too, but I just ran out of time. So It's about $90,000 extra on that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, but one thing that we want to kind of talk about the order today is that we're going to go through the presentation in order of the budget book. And each department will be talking, we'll have Jean, our finance director, is going to be presenting any significant changes in the budget and pointing them out to you. And then the department is there to present their capital and answer any questions about any line items that you would have in there. And then at the end, like I say, I'll come back and answer any questions during the day or address anything that comes up. And then I'll probably, when you're done for the day, we'll probably do a little recap at the end. So with that, I will turn it over to John and Robert that maybe can kick it off. And then I guess I'll kick it off with Jean. But with that, does anybody have any questions of me right now? Okay, this is called a work session for a reason, so.
Pat, one quick one. You said, it's unmuted. Pat, one quick one. You said the cemetery, you had two on page 2 of your capital request form. You have two groundskeepers of cemetery. Is that besides that?
Yes, the cemetery request is capital one time. It's for a vehicle.
Okay.
And something else. That's an accessory to the vehicle.
Niches.
And then the library. And the library's to replace the roof. So the library amount will be $64,400 and the cemetery is $47,000.
Okay.
And I'll put that on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Because this is kind of giving you your year, and that's why between now and the end of the year, we don't do financial reports because you're looking at 1 month. What we do is take into consideration where you are in March, then April, then May, then June to give you a bottom line number for the end of the year. And hopefully that did that in this presentation.
Mrs. Walker,
Sure.
are we paying towards the, are we paying towards the unfunded liability for the PRS? I don't see an allotment here.
No, Mayor and Council, I did not put in a lot this year because last year we discussed it and we talked about the abilities to, what would be the savings if we were to put $1 million towards the unpaid liability. And it turned out that we would put $1 million in and we would get back that same over the actuarial, that same amount. So it didn't make sense for us to pay it down at that point. I know we also discussed pension obligation bonds, but what was happening with that is that there's so many unknowns on what's going to happen in the future, and then you would be locked into an annual payment of debt service no matter what happens to the unfunded liability in the future, and you'd still have an unfunded liability. So I didn't put it in there, but council with that fund balance reserve can do whatever they want to do. If they want to reconsider it and put it back in, that is something council can do.
The 2 million,
You could put in,
whatever.
you owe 33 million.
33?
So you can put in whatever you want to put in of the fund balance that's available. Like I say, this is the budget is like an open canvas every year, and
Yeah.
council builds the budget with staff.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. John, Robert?
Okay, Mayor. Sorry. Okay, Mayor, I'll turn it over to Jean and Sergio, and we can start going through the budgets, and you can give a quick overview of each budget, and if there's any major changes that needs to be called out, and then we put ourselves at your disposal to answer any questions as we go through each budget. So the first one that we have, and I think the first one are all revenues, right? And she went over that, right?
The non-departmentals, revenues, that's the
Right.
very first one.
Right.
And she
so I'll
touched
turn
on
over
this.
to her so she can talk about it.
Okay, so then if you would turn to the non-departmental for expenses, One of the big ones in there is the health insurance. You'll notice was much higher than what had been originally budgeted. That is because when Officer Cordova passed, insurance was only paid out for so many months, and it was actually supposed to be for life, and that's for the family. So we had to make up the difference from 19 and 20, and now going forward, it'll all be correct. We won't see huge jumps like this, but we had to go back and make the payment.
Are you talking about the health insurance?
Yes.
So that's the reason it went up to 180.
But from now on, it'll be the normal amount. You won't see such a huge jump. It's just included in the monthly from now on.
You know, it's hard for you to say, but, you know, how could those mistakes happen? Were we getting charged by the insurance for it?
I wasn't here.
I know, that's why,
Yeah, what happened is that it wasn't budgeted in the previous fiscal year, so we're adding that budget to this fiscal year that's coming out for that one.
it wasn't budget, but it was approved by council to pay for life.
Correct, and the previous, I was instructed by the previous director that we could only pay 18 months of it. And then that's when it was brought up, this past, year that we're supposed to continue the payment, so
What, Sergio, you know, in an issue like that, I think finance should bring it up to council when it happens, not 2 years later. You know, just a suggestion. It doesn't look good on us to fall back so much and then have the grind of having it all at once.
Agreed.
Okay, just.
So Gene, when you say it's going to be back to normal, are you talking like back in 2019?
No, it's what this includes. It includes the retirees' health insurance, and then again we added. Usually averages about 125, 130, depends on the number of retirees. This year we had an increase of people that retired, and so the city pays portion of the retirement. So it increased not just because of the Officer Cordova, it's also the main of the rest of the retirees that we have this current
So,
fiscal
but
year.
what's the average, like, what it would be an average amount?
It depends if it's family, if they have family coverage. Usually it's the same, it's that we pay only for single coverage, and then we get a subsidy from either from ASRS or PSPRS, depending on
Yeah.
to cover the
So
rest
those
of
are factors, but here on the 17 and 18, it was 116, and then it kind of fluctuated. Of course, those factors are taken into consideration, so it would be anywhere, I mean, it would be the bottom line less than 181 on the health insurance for the retirees.
This one, is it going to be close?
The 181 is the projected expenditure.
No,
This
I know
one.
that, but is it going to be less? Is that what you're saying?
It might be less because we have a couple of retirees that are gonna get to the age of 65, so once they drop out of the program, then we actually end
So
up
you're
paying that.
projecting it's going to be less?
We're actually, you're talking about this fiscal year?
Yeah,
So right now the actual is 158. So we
yeah.
But we're projecting
We're
this.
projecting to be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Because we're adding the
Yeah.
Cordovas on there.
So that's why you're projecting it to be less? Okay.
So how do you base the insurance coverage? Like I noticed that on mayor and council it's 14,400 a year, and then on regular employees I think the highest is like 11,841.
Yeah, for council and mayor, the city pays 100% of the insurance. So that is why it's covered at, if you have family or you have a single coverage, it depends on what we cover. For the employees, it depends on the tier that they fall in, depends on what they make. They put in a certain portion of the cover, the full 14, say family is 14,400. They cover part of it and the city covers the rest,
So
depends on the tier.
They pay their share. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the non-departmental?
Yeah, so here on the professional services, line item 6599, other professional services, What is that?
That is actually where we had budgeted, I think it was Pat, for a different thing. So the reason it dropped because now Pat is budgeted into the finance department's
I
budget.
don't think we're on the same
Yeah, we're
line or page.
Six-
65.99.
$65.99?
That it went from 212 to 100,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
that's where.
Oh, okay, so that's Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Correct.
And now she's been moved into the finance budget for this coming year.
That's why it dropped.
Okay, so where is she, which I like, where is she at?
So she is now in the finance budget.
Okay, I'll go
Mhm.
back to
Yeah.
finance. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for this one? Okay. So for the mayor's office, there really weren't any large substantial changes. The only one that kind of went up was advertising, but for the most part, the mayor's budget has stayed basically the same as this past year. The council stayed exactly the same. For the city managers,
Just 1 second.
oh, sure.
I have questions. On the insurance for council, what is the total cost? Oh, here it is. Okay. Just 1 second.
Sure.
We got this a little late, so I'm trying to go back to my notes. Okay, so it's the 86, is it the 86,000?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
One question. Mayor, did you have, what was it that we had allocated to your expense? The 60,000? Is that not here, Jay?
It's still there.
What is that, George? Sorry, I didn't hear.
60,000 on the economic development.
Oh,
That's the one we use for,
Oh, that's what they did. Remember, it was 60,000. It got split to
No, it's-
capital equipment and to.
Mayor, it's in the,
it's not in the
it-
mayor's.
it's not department number?
no, Mr. Mayor, it's in the city manager's
City
budget.
manager,
Uh-huh,
that's where it's at.
because it's the economic development position.
It's always
That,
been in that.
that last year,
Oh, it's this one.
you decided to reallocate that to the mayor's budget. And this year, you can definitely do the same thing. It'll be mayor and
That's the one we
council's
use
pleasure.
for radio spots, advertising.
Yeah, I recall, that's why I was just wondering why was it in the mayor's spot? Did you know about that, Jay?
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go.
Yeah. But it's under the city manager.
Okay.
If you look at this page, the pages that they gave you of the frozen positions or, right? You see the very top one?
The 62,000.
The city manager, economic development management analyst, 62,740 as a salary. So really, what it all really means, George, it's in here, it's just not in the mayor's budget, but you guys can move that if that's your desire.
That one was for advertisement.
Yeah. Very little of it was used. About half of it, John, was used. You remember?
I'd have to go look, you want me to go look?
You don't have to.
What-
But we used it for
Because it's in your,
buy local and to.
we can look at your budget real quick here. Mayor's, let's see here.
Split, right? It was split. It's now this one.
Yeah, it's portion got moved from, I think it's from here, and they split portion over here and there. from the 60,000. When they did a budget transfer.
So
Did
it
we
is-
do a budget adjustment on that?
Yes.
Oh,
So
that's
it
why
is-
that's
it
not
is
gonna
in
be
the mayor's office.
documented, yeah.
But
So-
it's split. There's part of that
Right.
60,000 is under the other contractual services, part of it is under the general supplies, and then part of it is under the other capital. So it's all still in your budget, it's just split.
It's not, it doesn't show 160.
Right, it does not show
line item.
160,000 number. It's split between three different categories.
And where is it good?
The expenditures is what you're looking for?
So on the mayor
They're looking at the
expenditures.
mayor's budget, and can you explain which line items those
Sure,
expenditures?
so you're looking at 6899, which is other contractual services.
They put 29,000
They put
in there,
29 of
George,
it there.
and it doesn't appear they spent any of it. Okay?
And then they put some under the 7010, which is under the general supplies, so there was another portion there, and that's where a little bit was spent.
20,000 was put in, 3,000.
And then under the 9199, the other capital equipment is the other 11,000 that makes the 60.